the conditions are really bad, so we had to build bicycles. So a lot of work that went into it. We needed panniers, we needed equipment. Students had to get trained. Students had to get trained in first aid. Students had to get trained in bicycle maintenance and repair. They had already learnt as a part of the course, but now it was like you're taking it to the now it's like you're taking it to the next level. Way students were very committed. We had to make a training plan because this was all happening during their regular academic. They're studying engineering, so you can imagine they're going to college and they're doing all this. So it also meant a lot of time management, being very disciplined, showing up at 5:30 for a ride. So it builds in a lot of these critical elements. They suddenly realize how to manage themselves and manage their lives and accomplish these big things.
I am Vinky, and this is the Working Athlete Podcast. Here, I talk to working athletes from all walks of life and experts from various sports to provide you with inspiration, training tips, time management, and lifestyle advice. If this is something that interests you, please make sure you subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss any future episodes. Today's guest, Ganesh Nayak, is a bike tourer, a sea kayaker, an adventurer, and an assistant professor at the Manipal Academy of Higher Education in Manipal, where he runs the Center for Outdoor Studies. He has done extensive bike touring in the Himalayas, the Highlands of Iceland, and the Pamir Mountains. He recently took 6 of his students on a multi-day tour in the Zanskar Valley in the Himalayas. In this episode, Ganesh shares about the origins of the Center for Outdoor Studies, what it does, and its educational philosophy. He talks about the experiences from the center's recent trip to the Zanskar Valley as well. He also shares tips for setting up a bicycle for touring, essential gear needed for longer tours, route planning and risk management techniques one needs to use while getting ready for a bike tour. It was a bike touring 101 of sorts. I hope you enjoy this conversation as much as I did. This episode is brought to you by The Bike Affair. If you are in search of a one stop destination that caters to all your cycling needs, our today's sponsor, The Bike Affair, is the perfect place to check out. I have known the founders of The Bike Affair, Krish and Gokul, personally for nearly 15 years now. In fact, my first century ride was with Krish back in 2008. They are both exceptional human beings and entrepreneurs that believe in providing exceptional service to their customers. And it shows. With over 14 years of experience, the Bike Affair has established itself as a trusted source offering honest advice and exceptional service. They are offering a special treat for the listeners of this podcast. You can enjoy a 10% discount on your first order by using the code BikeyWenky on their website. So if you are in Hyderabad, visit their store in Kondapur, or if you are anywhere else in India, shop online by using the link thebikeaffair.com. I will leave the link in the show notes. Now, enjoy the podcast. Welcome to the Working Athlete Podcast, Ganesh. It's a pleasure having you on the show. The last time we did this was back in 2020 or
2020.
And it was of course on Zoom, and it is great to now sit across each other and do this in person. So yeah, welcome here.
Thank you, Venki. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. And it feels like there is some stuff that has happened between then and now.
Yeah.
We were supposed to make a tour of Zanskar in 2020, and finally it's happened.
Right.
So I think I was talking about making something
Correct,
that happened last
correct.
time as
Yeah.
well. Yeah, it's good. It feels good. A big thing off my plate.
Yeah.
And time to move on and do other things, I guess.
Excellent. Let's talk about that. But this is, something that I want to start with though is the Center for Outdoor Studies that you help make it happen in Manipal University, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk about what it does, what is the educational philosophy,
Okay.
and
to begin with, how did it come about?
Okay.
That this is not something that is very usual, right?
Yeah, it isn't. So it's probably one of the only outdoor centers like this in any university in India. Though it's something that is very common in universities in Europe and US, where they actually have like dedicated outdoor centers. In India, I think this is one very specific, probably the first one. But I don't think ours will be the only one. I see centers like this coming up across everywhere, as a lot more people are using the outdoors for recreational purposes. You'll see a lot of people who are going kayaking and doing a lot of backpacking and
Right.
traveling and stuff like that, and getting into the outdoors. So I think more and more university will try and engage with their students through whatever natural resources are available around these universities, and they'll try to get more students out there. And I think it's very important, especially with climate change and stuff like that, that our youngsters engage in the natural environment and derive some kind of joy from it. Because I think if you connect with it on that level, and you suddenly realize that it has value, it adds value to your life, then tomorrow when you become a decision maker, you will keep that in mind.
Right.
And we need leaders like this. I think there's a big disconnect between people who are making decisions and the natural environment. Don't That's the last thing people are thinking about.
Correct.
And it's always a number game about what is this resource worth to us. And if we have to, and if you have, I would say, unrealistic goal of having like a 5 trillion economy,
Right.
where are you going to get it from? You're going to
Yeah.
plunder your forest. You're going to mine your seas and poison the water and all that comes. So that will
Everything
not,
comes,
yeah,
everything comes at a cost.
it comes at a cost. And we're already seeing heat waves in Europe, and my place in Katpadi is underwater. There's like it's pretty extreme what is happening. And when we were in Zanskar, we just came from there, and a couple of weeks later, it's completely wiped out. It's washed away.
Wow.
The whole road is washed away because the BS has gone. There's so much flooding that's happened. There's so much unseasonal water falling,
Right.
that they're not able to. And there, I've also seen that a large part of the hills have been cut down to expand roads. It's just not able to handle it.
Right.
And yeah, that's
Yeah, so definitely, involving the students in the early life, getting them in touch with nature, the outdoors,
yeah,
the environment is very, very
very
critical for,
yeah.
because these are the guys, the leaders of tomorrow,
Tomorrow.
right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah.
And we need to make this a part of the education. And this came from my Himalayan trip. The first time I cycled the Himalayas, I had such a wonderful experience. I lived outside for a whole year, just traveling on my bicycle, and that was such a transformational experience. The Himalayas was not the transformational experience. I had transformational experience before that, which led
Right.
to the Himalayas.
Hmm.
But then I suddenly realized, that's it's only because nature has transformed me that I was able to go out and do something like that. And I
Right.
wanted my students to experience that.
No, we talked about, your transformational experience, in the first episode, but to kind of give a refresher to the listeners, let's talk about that because, you were a big chain smoker
Yeah.
to begin with.
Yeah.
And from there to now, right?
Yeah.
So take us through, how you were able to, get rid of that habit and how you took up to cycling.
Okay, so I struggled with addiction with cigarettes for a long time. So I don't think I want to get into how I got into smoking, but it's something that happened in college.
Right.
Just hanging out with friends and stuff
Yeah.
like that. It's just something that I got into. I didn't realize that I was actually going to get addicted. It's only once I started working, and my friends moved away, that I actually started smoking. I use it as a crutch, like how it helps you fill some void, and helps
Like
you
any addiction,
yeah, like
right?
any addiction. Yeah, you just get into it, and then I tried to quit a lot of times. It never worked. Nothing worked. um, and I was pretty desperate. I was willing to try anything. So I started educating myself, and I started reading more about it. I'm like, why am I getting addicted to this? Why am I smoking? I know it's killing me. I know it's burning a big hole in my pocket. And and I was aged. I couldn't climb a flight of stairs. I knew that it was killing me. Like
Yeah.
I could feel it at that point in time.
Hmm.
And yet I was helpless. I had to have my morning cigarette. I had to have one after lunch, and it was there. Didn't matter whether I was on vacation, whether it was a holiday, whether I was happy, whether I was sad. It just was there all the time, and it had invaded. There's probably not a private space that it hadn't invaded. It was there
Right.
everywhere.
Yeah.
So it was like taking a complete step away from it. And I think education played a big part, and I was able to understand. And then I think suddenly I started planning and managing triggers. And
How did you educate yourself though?
oh, so there's a website. It was called whyquit.com, and where I tell my students, because a lot of them pick up smoking,
Hmm.
and I tell them to go to this website. It's called Whyquit, and it's absolutely free. And it educates. And I think somewhere I read that a lifestyle change is something that, I wasn't taking pleasure, or I wasn't getting joy from my body, in the sense that naturally there are these, when you exercise, all this dopamine and all that stuff,
Right.
all those hormones
Endorphin. Yeah.
endorphins get released. Um, and I think that's what I did. I decided that the only way for me to quit, in some ways, also was to get stronger. If I had to battle this, it required a lot of mental, like, resilience and things to stand up to. So I had to be mentally strong as well. For that, I needed to be physically strong, and so I got into cycling.
Right.
And yeah, it changed my life. Within 6 months, I was able to quit smoking. My life came back, and I could actually feel getting stronger. It felt so good, being outside by riding my bicycle, able to climb these hills, which I was probably in the beginning I was struggling, and suddenly I could see it for myself that
Right.
you can see it, right?
Yeah.
Like it's probably the first time when you climbed Nandi to now doing it now.
Yeah.
You'll always remember the first time,
Yeah.
because you suddenly be like, hey man, I could do that.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
So that was the transformational nature
Hmm.
of cycling that I encountered, and that is what I'm trying to get my students to experience as well. And most of them experienced it, like with my Zanskar. They started off cycling to Agumbe. It's probably the Nandi of Udupi.
Right.
So it's 45 kilometers, and then a 10-kilometer uphill on these 14 hairpin bends. And once you do that, then you're thinking about, okay, which is the next hill that I'm going to go climb.
Right.
And that's how the Himalayas was also born. It was when I went and climbed Agumbe, and I thought, okay, what is bigger than this? And I suddenly realized the Himalayas.
Yeah.
And then that became the goal. And then yeah, obviously, it took me a year to plan and all that, and then I finally went and did it.
In 2014 was the first time you went to
Yeah,
Himalayas.
yeah,
So how was that first time experience there?
fantastic.
Hmm.
Like, uh, I've written a book about it.
Yeah. To which I incidentally wrote the foreword.
Yeah, you wrote the forward for it. Yeah, so it's crazy. I think that's when we met
Right.
at Crankmeister back
Exactly.
then.
Yeah.
Right. I still have a photograph of all of us, and yeah.
Amazing, dude. Amazing. So, but you enjoyed that experience of touring Himalayas in 2014 so much that you came back and wrote a book about it, Uncharted.
Yeah,
Right?
Uncharted. Yeah,
And then you went back in 2016.
2016. Yeah,
Then you actually toured the Highlands of Iceland.
yeah,
Then you rode in Pamir mountains in Kazakhstan.
yeah.
And you did a diploma in outdoor studies
Yeah.
from which university was it?
It's not a university; it's an organization. It's called National Outdoor Leadership School.
Right.
And they have been doing they've been running outdoor courses in the US and around the world. They have centers around the world since I think 1965 or 1960, somewhere in the 1960s.
Mhm.
And that was that I did the diploma because I had already been taking a lot of students outside
Right.
and doing bicycle trips and all that.
Right.
But then I wanted to try and see how someone else is doing it. I'd heard of Knowles. I'd done a course with Knowles the first time I was out in the Himalayas in 2014. I did something called as Wilderness First Responder,
Hmm.
a woofer course. So basically first aid
Right.
for 10 days in Ranikhet, where they have an India center, Knowles India. It was such a good experience, and the kind of learning that I got there was amazing, and the kind of people that I met there were also really good. A lot of people who are into the outdoors,
Hmm.
someone that I could, like, it felt like I'd met my community. And then when I started doing these trips around Western Ghats with my students on our bikes and stuff like that, I wanted to see what else can I do, and then that's when I applied for this diploma in outdoor education. So all these things were also in some way in line with the vision that I had once I came back to Manipal, was to start a center
Right.
which promoted outdoor travel and adventure travel. Um, and yeah, this just fell in line, and I got a scholarship, and I think the course gave me like a structure that I could replicate. Of course, there I backpacked and kayaked, but here I got
Right.
it back and did cycle touring.
Hmm.
Because everybody has a bicycle, and it's not so difficult to arrange for a bicycle also.
Hmm.
And it was a resource that was widely available because most students have bikes and are riding around,
Hmm.
and it worked perfectly for me.
Right.
And
So all this practical experience, and also studying at these centers like that gave you that impetus to start something similar in here in the
yeah,
university,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So how has the experience been over the years? Once you started the center, there would have been many students that went through the
Yeah, yeah,
course.
yeah.
So how has the experience been and the response been from them?
The response has been good.
Mm.
And a lot of students who do a course come back and want to do more of it. And that's why the Zanskar was possible, because
Mm.
it requires commitment. Look, my course is like 6 weeks, but if you cycle 6 weeks, it's not enough to go and cycle the Himalayas.
Right.
You need a bigger commitment, and these students wanted to commit to something like this. And it's because I've got such good response that I've been able to put a team together to go and cycle in Ladakh.
Right.
I don't think any other university has this, but I think there are a lot of students everywhere who want opportunities like this, and I
Yeah.
think these opportunities have to be made possible, because you can only teach so many things inside a classroom. It's how do you teach a student to never give up? I remember this place in Zanskar where we're cycling, and we're cycling to this hill called Gombo Ranjan, and you could see it. You could see it 10 kilometers
Right.
before. When we entered the valley, we could see it that it's at the end of the valley. And we got such bad headwinds. It took us 3 hours to cycle 10 kilometers.
Right.
And it's there.
Yeah.
It's right in front of you. And we kept thinking, okay, it's going to take us half an hour, 45 minutes. We'll be there,
Hmm.
3 hours later, we're still struggling, and the hill is right there. And the you need so much mental strength at that point in time to just go out and do things like this. And it's a crazy experience.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds really like great experience, because especially for youngsters like that, to to do a tough tour like that, Janskar, and where it is like the playground of the gods, the Himalayas.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that experience. I mean, nothing like that.
Yeah, so a lot of preparation obviously goes into it.
Hmm.
We started preparing probably 6 months, getting all our medical tests done, and that's so important, just to make sure that everyone is healthy and ready to go. If there are any issues, then can we fix it? So this just brings all these conditions, and you go through all that. We had to get permission. A lot of clothing had to be, because these students don't really have, and you need very specialized clothing for the
Right.
Himalayas,
For the cold,
for the
for
cold.
the rain and stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, for the winds,
Hmm.
and and you have to be able to have gear that goes through a series of things. Like it can be nice and hot 1 minute, next minute it's like, it gets really cold if there's a big cloud that comes up, if it rains or hail and stuff like that. So a lot of clothing and stuff like that had to get. Luckily, we got sponsored by Decathlon. Decathlon jumped in.
Oh, beautiful.
They lent us clothing. They even gave us a couple of bikes, which proved to be really good
Nice.
because some of these students didn't really have like a bicycle,
Hmm.
so we had to arrange for bicycles as well.
Right.
You can't take a Mantra up there in Zanskar
Yeah.
and expect it to, these
No,
things.
withhold, yeah.
Yeah, withhold.
Mm.
The conditions are really bad, so we had to build bicycles. So a lot of work that went into it. We needed panniers, we needed equipment. Students had to get trained. Students had to get trained in first aid. Students had to get trained in bicycle maintenance and repair. So these things they'd already learnt as a part of the course, but now it was like you're taking it to the,
Practicals.
now it's like you're taking it to the next level.
Right.
So that way students were very committed. We had to make a training plan because this was all happening during their regular academics. So
Yeah.
they had to manage, they're studying engineering. So you can imagine they're going to college and they're doing all this. So it also meant a lot of time management and, being very disciplined, showing up at 5:30 for a ride.
Yeah.
So it builds in a lot of these critical elements, because they suddenly realize how to manage themselves and manage their lives and accomplish these big things.
Right.
So that way.
I mean, for a lot of people, just doing engineering and getting through it is a big achievement.
Yeah.
To add to that,
Yeah.
all this is
Yeah.
really good.
Yeah.
So, you had to plan all this and train all this. So you finally, made it to the start of the tour.
Yeah.
So how was the experience? How long was this? How many days? And how
Yeah.
did that go?
So that's what I kept telling my students. Showing up at the start line itself is a big victory.
Right.
Getting up at 5:30 and showing up for your training itself is a victory.
Hmm.
And then the ride is the easiest. I think you know that.
Yeah.
Getting up and getting on your bike is the
Preparation is the biggest
yeah,
thing.
it's the biggest thing.
Enjoying the process is the biggest thing.
Yeah, it is. That's where, and it's also the tough things. I think that's where you're tested. And I think these students knew by the time when we got to Sonmarg that, um, there's a popular saying by Lao Tzu which says, "Do tough things when they're easy and great things when they're small." Preparing for it was the toughest thing, and then actually going out and doing it was a lot of fun because you've done all the training, you're set, and there's just the hill that needs to go and climb. Still tough, but I think we had the confidence by then. Our training had given us the confidence. So we cycled for 15 days. We cycled, I think, around 550 kilometers. We did like around 4 high altitude passes. The last one was Shinkula at 5,000 meters.
Wow.
So that was the pass that got us out of Zanskar Valley and into Himachal Pradesh. Yeah, some days were super beautiful, some days were super tough. Some days all you wanted to do was give up. Some days you just wanted to cycle all day because it was so beautiful.
Yeah. What were some of the challenging days or challenging moments you guys faced? How did the students overcome that?
Yeah, I think the first day was very challenging. It was all new. We had cycled, but none of them actually cycled with their panniers. So balancing the bikes and all
Oh,
that.
yeah.
Because we got panniers in the very end. We didn't have panniers. And we had to get them and we had to buy panniers and stuff. And so, plus we got clothing from Decathlon towards the end. So then suddenly we had to pack everything. And then suddenly they were like, okay, cool. We actually have to take all this now. I think that was like a wake up call.
Yeah.
But I worked with students
Hmm.
to do just the pack list and all that. We had to look at that.
Hmm.
And I think the first day itself was very difficult because we were going to climb up to Zojila and the road was, oh my God, was in terrible state. There's no road. So, and there is a lot of traffic because Zojila has become like a tourist destination. So there is a lot of activity up in the pass where there is snow. So people on snowmobiles and all this. And it's like a big mela there. So a lot of traffic going up so you have to work with the traffic as well while you're cycling,
Right.
and it's your first high altitude pass. You're going up to 3,500 meters,
Jesus.
and the Spaniards are there. So you can imagine people were very stressed. They're like, okay, is this how it's going to be? So I had to tell them that it's not like this. I told them, see, once we cross Zojila, it's going to get quiet, and it got real quiet really quick.
Right.
So I think that was the first day, which was tough.
Hmm.
After that, I think the body acclimatizes, you get used to it. It gets the traffic dies down, which is a big help. It's mostly the traffic.
Right.
You don't realize it, and
Yeah.
it's and the road is so narrow, so you're like right next to them.
Hmm.
You're cycling up this road, which has there's no road there.
Right.
I think that was one tough day. After that, I think once we entered Zanskar, every day was a tough day. There was no road, and conditions became really bad, like terrible headwinds. Like I said, 10 kilometers took 3.5 hours. Can you imagine? 3.5 hours, you're just out there, and it's so frustrating. I was laughing because of how unbelievable it got. 10 kilometers is like half an hour.
Exactly. Yeah.
You're there struggling for 3.5 hours, just trying to cycle and just reach. That's pretty tough. There's also a day before that we had also cycled. Even that was very tough. So we reached this place we were getting to this place called Purne, and it was supposed to be like a 40-kilometer ride. 25 of it was on really good roads. The last 15 was on bad roads. Again, it got really narrow and very canyon as you're going down and up and down and up. So basically, you're traveling up right next to the river, and it's very steep canyon. So we reached this little village. It's called Char, and the village is on the other side. So the road is supposed to actually skirt around, but the road has collapsed because of a landslide or something like that. And suddenly we realize we have a 10-kilometer detour, 6 kilometer up this hill, and 3 kilometers on the other side. And we reached that point around 5:30 in the evening. The wind was just blowing, and we started climbing, and it became impossible to cycle for some reason. It just got really steep, and we started pushing our bikes, and that was tough. I was ahead, so there were three people up ahead, three students and three students at the back, and I was in between.
Right.
And I lost sight of the three students ahead. I don't know where they went. And I was a little ahead of the other students, and I was waiting, and I turned back and I see these guys are just standing there, and I'm like, okay, let them catch up and then we'll decide what needs to be done. And they're not moving, they're just standing there, and we stood there just looking at each other for like 15 minutes, and I'm like, come, and they're just standing. And then later on when we were talking, they're like, it was impossible to even push our bikes up it, it was so difficult.
Yeah.
And we reached, and they finally came. And right at that point, a BRO truck, the Border Road Organization truck, came. And he's like, हाँ मैंने आपको देखा, I saw you. आप पुणे जा रहे हो? I'm like, yeah, we're going. Then he's like, I'll drop you. At that point in time, when the light was dropping, and we knew that it was going to get cold.
It's very,
Yeah,
I mean,
it's-
it
it
gets
just changed.
really cold very quickly.
Very
right?
quickly,
And
yeah.
very dark as well.
Yeah, very dark as well. And I decided that this is it. We're going to, we're just going to take the truck and go. We quickly put the bikes at the back, and we crossed the hill. We reached the other side.
And the guys are at the front.
Yeah, the guys at the front had crossed the hill,
Oh, good.
and they climbed, and they crossed. And yeah, it was good. I was so happy to see them, because I was like, how the hell, where are they? That's another thing, because out there
Yeah,
you can get
once you-
separated.
if you get lost, it
Yeah. So I was very happy to see them. The other time there's a girl who fell. So we're coming down down the pass. This is the second pass that we did, Pensila. So this is Pensila got us into Zanskar Valley. A very tough ride, but everyone did really well. And we crossed over, and there was really good roads. So we were coming down this really good road, and there was I think there was like a couple of inches where one road ended and the other started, and they'd missed like a couple of inches.
Yeah.
So I think this girl lost focus or wasn't really concentrating. She hit that. She took a tumble.
Yeah, very easy to.
Yeah, she took a tumble. Lucky for her, it felt like her guardian angel was on a lookout. She got away with just a minor scrap. Nothing happened. But her bike took a hit, and even there we were super lucky, because we suddenly realized that the one of the brake levers is broken. And so that was a back brake, but it was a bike given to us by Decathlon, and their front bike, the front brake along with the shifter was working, and we saw her bike was shifting. That gave us that confidence that okay, if this had gone, if her bike had broken on the other side, if it was the other lever, her trip would have ended,
Right.
because it would be impossible to cycle. At least now her shifters were working, and she had a front brake, and she finished the rest of the trip with just a front
Like
brake.
that?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, incredible. This girl is incredible. Her name is Shravya. Yeah, super resilient. I mean,
Yeah, experiences like this, you
yeah,
know, can give you, you know, when they are in tougher situations, you
yeah,
can say, if I
could do
could
that.
do that, you know,
Yeah.
this is, you know, I can get through this.
Yeah. So I think learning how to endure is so important, because I think success finally depends on that. Is on your ability to endure. You might have a very good idea, but you might not see success for 10 years. You know,
Right.
are you willing to endure? And how do you teach endurance? You can't teach endurance. You have to take and put students in situations like this, wherein they're able to rise to the occasion and accomplish stuff like this.
Exactly. Yeah.
And they will always look back. Nobody can ever take away stuff like this from them, right?
Yeah, yeah. So these are some of the, you know, I mean, very rightly said, you know, if these guys can endure these challenges, I mean, they will be able to tackle whatever the life
Yeah.
throws at them,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
now these are some of the challenges that you mentioned that, you know, you guys faced. What are some of the, you know, beautiful memories from that tour?
I think just sharing this experience
Yeah.
with for me with my students,
Right.
but for students themselves to have shared something like this with their peers, friends, is just beautiful, no?
Right.
Like how many of them probably joined college thinking that okay, I'm going to be cycling the Himalayas with some of these people, right? That is something that
Exactly. For 15 days
yeah, 15 days.
in a setting like
Yeah,
none
yeah,
other.
yeah. So, apart from that, definitely the scenery is breathtaking. That is definitely something that will remain, and just to be there and see all that and cycle through it.
Right.
It's a very different thing that you're driving, but to actually cycle through that, because you're then able to see really small details.
Right.
Um,
When you are pushing your bike up a slope
yeah,
at snail's pace,
snail
you are
pace.
observing everything.
Yeah, you are. You are.
Right.
Like we cycled through this beautiful Suru Valley. It was in full bloom,
Hmm.
and the road was mostly flat,
Right.
and the sun was out, and a nice gentle breeze. It felt like you're in paradise.
Yeah.
The whole valley was in bloom. It was. I don't think I'll forget that. It was one of the most brilliant days of cycling out there, and everybody had a smile on their face,
Yeah.
everybody had a smile. It's you have to be happy when the whole valley is like it's
When you are in paradise, you
yeah,
know,
yeah.
what else can you ask
Yeah,
for? Yeah.
yeah, it was super beautiful, and we got really lucky because we met the tourism director in Kargil, and we had got a letter written from our director saying that okay, such and such a people, and then we showed it to him, and he arranged accommodation. So this place where we went, and after this where we went in Suru Valley, and all these government bungalows are in really good locations, and we got free accommodation there.
Wow.
And the view outside the window was just magical, and yeah, sometimes you just luck out. And um,
Yeah, so I was about to ask you about the, you know, where you guys stayed overnight and stuff like that. So you managed to find these accommodations
yeah,
today?
yeah. So we did a lot of detailed route planning. So this is one way that you know how much you're committing for that day.
Right.
So we know what the day is going to look like. We look at altitude charts. We know how much, and that tells you, is the climb in the morning or in the middle half or in the later half of the day. And that
Mm.
then we have like a plan for that.
Mm.
How are we going to manage it?
Right.
Where do we stop for lunch? So we do very minute planning as well.
Right.
Of course, not everything goes according to plan,
Yeah.
but at least having one means that you have something to fall back on.
Correct.
At least you know that you've done a basic study of it. Then that's information that is that you can work with.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's
Amazing. So you've done these. I mean, this is like uh, not just you yourself going and doing all these tours in the Himalayas, in the Iceland, and all that. Taking a bunch of students along with you for 15 days and managing everything, right?
Yeah.
Along with them, including planning, route planning, logistics, all that, right? It kind of puts you in a unique situation where you can be you can give a lot of people tips on touring, right?
Yeah.
So let us get into touring 101,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
And talk about so let's start with setting up a touring bike, right?
Okay.
And take what all is involved and stuff.
So for me, I've had my surly long haul trucker. It's been with me for the last 10 years.
Right.
And I think a large part of it is understanding the kind of touring that I wanted to do and setting up the bike for what I wanted it to do. Um, so one of the things is you are looking at what are the moving parts on the bicycle, and you try to minimize that.
Yeah, before you get there, the first time we met was at Crankmaster,
Yeah.
and it was when you were interning at Crankmaster
Yeah.
because you wanted to understand how the bike worked, what all you
Yeah.
could go wrong, what all,
Yeah.
how to take care of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was, in your in DNA as to make sure that preparation is there for
Yeah.
every little thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, go ahead.
So I think that is just having a tool and learning how to use it are two different things. Just
Right.
because you have a tool doesn't mean you know how to fix a puncture. Okay, you have like a puncture kit, but do you know how to fix it?
Yeah.
Learning how to use these tools is super important. And so that internship at Crankmeister, I'd also done an internship before that, wherein I worked on more like um, heroes and mantras and stuff like that. I think the training that I did at Crankmaster, the internship that I did at Crankmaster was very specific to my bicycle. So it was taking the whole bicycle apart and then putting it back together.
Right.
Obviously, I didn't get into wheel building and stuff like that. I was a little more practical, knowing that okay, what did I want out of this? Tuning my brakes, probably working with the rear derailleur to get it to shift properly. Doing some basic chain, how to use a chain tool. If I have to use like a master link, how to use a master link. And basic fixing your puncture. That's the most common thing. And this preparation also gives you a lot of confidence, knowing that if you go out and something happens, you're able to take care. In the same way you do like a first aid course. And also, so when I started setting up my touring bicycle, I quickly realized that the lesser moving parts on it, the better it is. And whatever moving parts you have, you make them bomb proof. So having like a good set of wheels, like this Chris King, having that confidence that knowing, man, this is going to roll no matter what I throw at it.
Right.
Just the same thing with my headset as well. Again, I got like a Chris King headset for it. So I worked on those things, and then I started looking at setting up the bicycle for long tours. So I changed my saddle. I put like a Brooks saddle, and the Brooks is super comfortable. So I don't really need padded shorts. So that means I can just wear shorts like this. and just cycle around. And that's the same pair of shorts that I'll probably use later on to walk around town and as well. So it's just one little less piece of kit that is there. Obviously, my saddle, a touring bicycle is not like a race bike,
Yeah,
so you're
yeah,
not exactly looking at weight.
right.
Though you have that in mind, you're also looking at usability and
Right.
to make it easier for you.
Comfort
And yeah. And then you're looking at your cockpit,
Mm.
what you really need on it. Different hand positions because
Mm.
you're going to be cycling day in and day out. And again, it's a matter of comfort.
Right.
And then a nice, good upright posture. So the geometry of the bicycle to make sure that you're sitting upright. This is so that you can enjoy the scenery. And you're not in aero all the time.
Right.
You're just in a very comfortable position that you're
Correct.
cycling and stuff like that.
Mm.
So these are basic things that you're looking at in a touring bicycle, which is so pretty bomb-proof in the sense that if your bearings are good, then you know that not many other things can go wrong with
Right.
it. Learning how to fix your bicycle also.
Right.
Yeah, so that's those are things that we did. So wherever there is quick release skewers, like one of the things that we took care of because this time I had to build bicycles.
Mm.
These seat collars usually have like quick releases.
Right.
We removed things like that. That's
Mm.
one less thing that can go wrong.
Right.
Whereas if you have like a nut, it
Mm.
sits there.
Yeah.
Sometimes these things tend to go
Catch on something
yeah,
and come off.
come off, and then not only come off, but it stops to work.
Right.
And then the saddle keeps going down.
Right.
Then something so small
Can throw everything out.
yeah, so for that person. So we look at details like this.
Mm.
Can we make it? How do you make it bomb proof?
Mm. Nice. So what let us that is the bicycle, setting up a bicycle for touring, right? So what are the essential gear that you need for a long tour like this?
So I think a large part of it comes down to where you're touring.
Mm.
So if you're very specific, like if you want to cycle around the Ghats, the Western Ghats,
Mm.
then obviously you'll need a rain jacket.
Right.
You need like a couple of pairs of clothes.
Mm.
Depends on the season that you're doing it in.
Right.
So I think that'll probably tell you what kind of gear you need.
Mm.
Like when we went to cycle Zanskar, we knew that we needed cold clothing, clothing for the cold.
Right.
So like a good down jacket.
Mm.
And there we work with layering. So it's better to have multiple layers than one big down jacket.
Right.
Because then you can layer up or layer down depending on how it's going.
Right.
Usability, we field test most of the stuff.
Mm.
Now, there is this thing called merino wool. So we use a lot of merino wool.
That's
thing.
beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah.
Works like a charm.
It does, and it doesn't stink. It keeps you cold. It regulates temperature.
Exactly.
It regulates temperature
And not stinking is
not stinking.
such an
Yeah,
important thing
it is such an
on a
important
multi-day tour.
yeah, it is. So my top layer is always like a merino thing that I'm cycling with. So I don't use synthetic because it tends to stink up.
Right.
So we don't use synthetic clothing.
Mm.
Wool, and then keep yourself warm, and you have like a monkey cap or something like that.
Right.
And then socks.
Mm.
So again, we use merino socks. This
Mm.
merino socks, it gets wet, but it doesn't wet your I don't know how, it just holds on to the water. It doesn't let it
Right.
seep through. And especially in Zanskar, that mattered. Unfortunately my students didn't have it, and so their feet were soaked. I was wearing merino socks, and it just didn't at least it was holding on to 65% of the water.
Right.
So it didn't get completely soaked, my feet. And merino just regulates temperature.
Yeah.
So I think these smaller details that you pay attention to just makes it easier.
Right.
And you just concentrate on cycling. You're not suddenly worried about, okay, what am I going to do about my feet? It's so cold, and then your footwear is cold. Everything is, and then there is no joy there.
Mm.
And these things, I think, slowly add up, and then you're not having a good time.
Right.
So understanding the kind of gear to invest in is super important.
Mm. And it depends on where you are going and which season you are going and the conditions. Knowing and doing a little bit of research around
Definitely.
that
Yeah.
will determine what you need to take.
Yeah, I think it is. Unless you're going around your hometown where you stayed,
Right.
because then
Yeah.
you know the kind of clothes you need.
Correct.
But if you're going anywhere else, it is very important to know the kind of clothing you need.
Right.
Do a research, and I think you look at the locals and you see the way they dress, and then that's the way you got to dress.
Right.
Because they know what needs to be done. That's what I kept telling my students. I kept telling my students, see the way people dress, because so most of the time they were dressed like it was summer, but I kept telling them it's not summer.
Right.
Okay, just look around you. People are, and the way people dress will tell you the way you need to dress.
Right.
Because if the local is dressing up like this, means he knows what is coming.
Yeah.
And weather can change so quickly.
Mm.
And these are lessons, I think, that come out as you learn and you gain an experience. And yeah.
Definitely. And you mentioned about the route planning, right?
Yeah.
That becomes super important. Like you talked about the how much per day, and where
Yeah.
to stop,
But
and
yeah,
to
yeah,
what are the food stops and all that.
yeah.
So what all goes into route planning?
So, bringing the Zanskar, we knew where we wanted to go and we
Mm.
wanted to cycle.
Right.
We also knew that we were going into high altitude.
Mm.
So that became an important part of us making decisions on how much we wanted to cycle.
Mm.
So we kept short distances for the day
Mm.
in the beginning. So people were acclimatizing. We took rest days in the beginning as well,
Mm.
so that you're giving the body the rest that it needs. So I think our first stop was in Kargil.
Mm.
And Kargil was going to be the lowest point in our trip once we started out.
Right.
So we crossed Zojila, which was at 3,500, and then we dropped around 700 meters to 2,700. And we stayed at 2,700 for a couple of days, just to give our body that extra push. It's good oxygen,
Right.
so it makes it easier. To be there and
Acclimatize.
acclimatize, and we made sure that we are staying on the second or the third floor. So
Mm.
every you're also working in a little bit of cardio
Right.
every day, like small steps. You're going out for breakfast, then when you come back you have to climb a couple of flight of stairs. Just small things that you're paying attention to and giving detail,
Right.
thinking about these things. So that was a part, and then we gradually acclimatized and we went up, and we made sure that we are climbing high and resting low.
Mm.
So that's one of the philosophies of when you're-
Mountaineering
and
and
everything.
all
Yeah,
that, yeah.
whenever you're in high
Yeah.
altitude. So we made sure that we're following that.
Mm.
We kept a very close tab on everybody's vitals.
Mm.
So we had like a student who was measuring vitals every day.
Mm.
So, and we kept reporting back to our doctor,
Mm.
who laid out an acclimatization plan for us. And
Right.
so all this goes into planning.
Mm.
I wouldn't say it is exactly route planning, but yeah, this goes into planning.
Right.
And since we're not camping, we had to make sure that we knew where we're going, where there was a place for us to stay.
Right.
So we did like a research on that. We looked at a lot of vlogs and stuff like that to make. And not only that, once we did this research, we did like a local level research.
Mm.
Every day we went and we found out, okay, what is up ahead? How is the road?
Mm.
The information was not 100% solid every time, but at least we knew that there was a hotel along the way.
Right.
We would get some food. We knew that there was accommodation where we're going that evening. So all that is another local level that we do.
Right.
And we also did stuff like exit plans. What is our exit plan if something happens? Do we go back or do we go ahead? What is the plan then?
Right.
What happens if I fall ill? Who is responsible then?
Right.
Who takes decision?
That's all risk management.
That also comes into risk management and stuff like that. So these are things that so the reason that I was mentioning this is during our route planning, we also look at how to exit, which is the best place to go for us. And if it's possible, do we have like a contact there that we can get in touch with? Someone who can evacuate us if it's needed, in
Right.
case of someone falling really ill, someone having an accident.
Right.
So we also looked at hospitals. What is the hospital facilities along this route? And I think that's what's needed. And you need to do this kind of research.
I mean, these things are most of the things that we overlook.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, someone like me would think, okay, I have a bicycle, I have, maybe this clothing, that clothing, and I'm good to go. And I need to, okay, I have these many kilometers to cover this today,
yeah,
and I get there, and that's it, right?
yeah,
So
yeah,
that, I mean, all these are really important when it comes to
yeah.
planning. Yeah.
I think if you do all that,
Mm.
then this is the only thing that you have to do on that day,
Correct.
is just to go and cycle there.
Right.
And everything else is done because everything else is in place. And you know, okay, what needs to be done. There's already a process. You know what needs, how to tackle it if it comes.
Yeah.
Um,
Uh,
yeah,
Great, great. So, I mean, let us touch upon the risk management,
yeah,
planning. So,
yeah.
what goes into risk management?
Okay.
What are some of the risk management techniques and stuff?
So we try to avoid
Mm.
everything. Like
Mm.
there should be no zero risk when you're
Mm.
going. Obviously, that doesn't happen. So we
Mm.
try to see what we can do prior to it. So
Mm.
planning.
Mm.
We did all medical tests so
Mm.
that we knew about each other.
Mm.
So a doctor profiled us.
Mm.
There was a physical profiling that was done.
Mm.
We obviously trained for it.
Right.
And we knew what route we were doing. This route was discussed with people, like at least our management. So they knew where we were going. Um, and we had cycled. We knew our at least 3 or 4 of these bikes we knew were solid,
Right.
and we knew that our bikes were solid.
Right.
So I think this just gives you that confidence. And our route planning was really good. We had
Mm.
exit plans. We knew what to do under any condition.
Mm.
Our acclimatization was good. We kept monitoring acclimatization of
Mm.
people, of individuals, and making sure that everyone was good.
Right.
So I think a lot of it is pre-planning,
Correct.
so that you're not panicking when it actually happens. Something
Mm.
happens, you're not panicking.
Right.
You know what needs to be done because you already have a plan for something like this.
Mm.
So for me, at least, that is what risk management is to contain. It's not that there is no risk. There is,
Mm.
but uh, if things go wrong, how do you
How do you tackle
how do you tackle it?
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah.
Great, great. So we kind of talked about your Zanskar Valley trip and all the planning, the
Mhm.
touring 101. What are the things that you need to take care of
Yeah,
when
yeah,
planning a
yeah,
tour like this,
yeah.
long tour like this? So, something that we, in the first time we talked about, something you were preparing for was, sea kayaking,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah,
You were learning.
yeah.
Planning
Still learning.
something.
Still learning.
Right. So how is that, what is all involved in, something like kayaking experience?
Okay. So, I told you Manipal is where I stay. So when I came back, I realized how rich Manipal actually is. I mean, I always knew it, but
Mm.
then I was able to open my eyes and see it for what it is.
Right.
And I suddenly realized that, hey man, we have a river, we have such good coastlines, and it was great that I traveled with a kayaker as well for a bit.
Mm.
And she influenced me to think about these things, and I wanted to get into sea kayaking.
Mm.
I think in 2019 I was actually planning a trip to Africa. I wanted to cycle Madagascar. um, but my dad fell ill, and I canceled my trip to stay back and take care of him,
Right.
and my mother as well. And I had all this money put aside, and I didn't know what to do with it, so I ended up buying a sea kayak.
Right.
And COVID came, and COVID came, and then everything shut, and I suddenly had so much time, and I found a place by the river. And I went there, and I got like a trainer, and we started training, and I learned how to roll my kayak. We did trips around Udupi. While the whole world went up into like a lockdown, I was actually unlocking a world.
Right.
And it was this whole world that I was exploring a new ecosystem.
Right.
And that is something that I wanted to open up. And last year we ran kayaking courses. We got like a few students to come. And we're trying to put together a team to kayak the coast of Karnataka this December.
Wow.
And again, it'll be like a for students. Yeah, let's see how that goes. It's it's very different from from cycle touring,
Right.
but I like adventure travel, and
Right.
I like travel which involves using the human body. I think there is something about it.
Right, right. Yeah, I mean, touring in Himalayas, Zanskar Valley, and that itself is quite challenging. But kayaking the coast of Karnataka, sounds like even more challenging. So,
Yeah.
how far? I mean, how long is the
So we're not doing the
thing?
whole coast.
Hmm.
We've identified probably like 130, 140 kilometers. Maybe a day cycle actually, if you have to cycle up.
Right.
But on a kayak, it's going to take a lot longer.
Hmm.
Probably going to take us 5 days.
Right.
We're going to camp slash stay in places as we go up. It's easier to carry gear in a kayak because it doesn't load it up so much, so you're able to fill it up a little bit more. It also gives it a little more buoyancy.
Right.
So yeah, so that's what we're going to be doing. So 5 days, I think we're going to kayak from Manipal, and then we're going to go kayak up to, I think, Gokarna, and
Right.
that's where we trip. After that is Karwar, and they have a naval base and stuff like that. I don't think we want to play around there because it means getting extra permission, and I don't see.
Right.
I think this itself is a good goal.
So sea kayaking.
Yeah, sea kayaking.
Yeah.
Yeah, so again, this is a part of the center.
Hmm.
So this is something that the center works towards.
Right.
And especially with global warming and sea level rise, is a great way for students to go out and experience this and build a relationship with your ocean. Especially coastal areas, there's a lot of flooding, like the field site that we are at in Katpadi got flooded. It got flooded for the second time in just in 2 months.
Wow.
And it's not flooded in 50 years.
Wow.
So the frequency of flooding is just like, it's just skyrocketing. And this is alarming,
It is. It is.
especially given that our coasts are like so highly populated. If tomorrow, if there is a sea level rise and a significant sea level rise, it'll push back a lot of people. And where are those people going to go?
Right.
They're going to come inland, but that is at what cost?
Right.
And these are big questions that need to be asked. How is the government going to actually tackle this problem? Because they're going to be refugees.
Right.
They're going to lose their land. They're going to probably lose their livelihood. And how is the government going to relocate? And where are they going to relocate these people to?
Right.
And what are they going to give them for their livelihood? You know?
True. All these things have to be, thought about and answered to. Yeah.
I mean, it is going to come.
Yeah.
It's we know that that this thing is coming. It's just a matter of time.
Right.
And yeah, I think especially living in the coast, it is super important for us to start interacting and going out and learning about it, because otherwise it's going to come to our doorstep.
Yeah, it's amazing that through the center, all these things are the students are the future generation is getting to experience this.
Yeah.
So the leaders of the future, so to
Yeah.
speak, are getting to experience this firsthand.
Firsthand, yes. And I think it's very important. I mean, we have to create people who are able to do this, and that way I feel blessed that I have a job like this.
Right.
I feel.
Yeah, it is. It's an amazing job that you are doing. Feeling blessed that you have a job like this is one thing, but I think everyone around you are also feeling blessed that you are there to kind of doing it.
I don't know about that. I don't know about that, but
At least that it feels
I know
like that for me.
I know my students are happy.
Yeah, I mean that's what is
Yeah, my
important,
students.
right?
Yeah, that's great that I'm able to bring this. It feels good that I'm able to give back something to Manipal. It's something that I always thought about. And it's been hard work.
Right.
It's not been easy. A lot of challenges, a lot of people to be convinced. People still think, "Enta damare, he just goes and cycles. What is there?" But there is a significance to it.
Yeah.
And people may see it, may not see it. Doesn't really matter. As long as I see it, and then I'm touching a few lives, I think that's what matters.
Definitely, man, definitely. And I really appreciate the all the work that you're doing, and I wish you all the very best for all the future endeavors that you and the center takes up. And thank you for taking the time and sharing the experience with the Working Athlete podcast.
Hey, no problem. Thank you so much, Venki, for this opportunity. Fantastic. Yeah.
Awesome.
That was my conversation with Ganesh Nayak. I hope you enjoyed that. If you are enjoying these podcasts and are finding them useful, please consider supporting the podcast by subscribing to it on YouTube as well as on your favorite podcasting app. It really helps. Also, supporting the sponsors of the podcast is a great way to support the podcast itself. Thanks again for your continuous support. See you next week with another guest.